Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 18th meeting of the Auburn School Committee. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
The flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All right, everyone, let's start with introductions down here to my right, please.
Evening, Dave Simpson at large.
Brian Belknap, Ward 4.
Corin McWiggin, Ward 1.
Pam Hart, Ward 2.
Karen Matthew, Ward 3.
Connie Brown, Superintendent.
John, Ward 5.
Brian Carrier, Mayor's Representative.
All right, thank you all. And Faith Fontaine is excused from this evening's meeting, and we welcome Corin to her first school committee meeting. Welcome, Corin. All right, moving on. The agenda this evening is a little different. We have presentations only this evening, as well as an executive session, so I don't need a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda, and there are no minutes that were attached. Those will be on your December 2nd meeting. So, starting off this evening with public participation, it's my understanding there's no one in the community room at this time.
No.
Okay, all right, so we're moving into presentations this evening. Two presentations this evening. The first one being the budget preparation for the 21-22 school year. And then we're going to, it's not necessarily a presentation, but a discussion for recommended revisions for the City of Auburn Charter. Take it away.
Thank you. I'm going to get up so I can get closer to Adam. Put the opening ready.
Oh, thank you.
I think you're going to have to talk into the mic or they won't be able to hear you on the Zoom.
Michelle's got one.
Michelle's
Michelle,
got a mic.
Connie, Michelle's got one. Dr. Brown.
Thank you. Okay. So we're going to go through. Subsidy. Thank you. And is that better?
Text coming. Text coming.
Should I try this one? There we go. How about that?
You can do either or.
So I'll use this one. And so we're going to go through what we know those fixed costs are. And then at the end of our discussion and presentation, we'd like to hear from you in terms of what the parameters should be for school year 21-22. And we understand that a number of things have not been set yet, including the 279, which comes out in February. But I think it's important at this stage to hear your thoughts on how we shape that budget. So to get started, Adam, thank you. I've expanded your budget process and changed it up a little bit for you this year. It's important to me that you have airtime with other administrators and not just hear me blather on. And so on the 24th, which is the first evening that we will present the budget to you from 6 to 8, that's a workshop night, this is how we've set it up. So Article 1 is the regular instruction, and that is the lion's share of where our classroom costs are. Those are teachers, supplies, books, materials, etc. And so as part of that, each elementary administrator is going to be asked to give a short 3-minute presentation. They will include things like student-teacher ratios, class sizes, how many people are in the building, and so on. We'll ask the middle school to present that night as well, the high school, and then we'll have school committee discussion. Following that, it's an opportunity to give you as much information as possible. Adam? So the next evening for your discussion is March 3rd. That's from 6 to 7. We believe that you need a full hour to hear the special education budget presentation, followed by school committee discussion. On the 10th, we have another 2 hours, and so we'll go through Article 4, that's sports and co-curricular. One of the things that I'll be doing for you this year is setting up your sports accounts a little bit differently. You will get a cost per sport, for example, what it costs to put a kid on the floor, kid on the ice, and we will include things like transportation, stipends, supplies, and so on, so you'll have a good idea of what that actually costs. We will also make sure that you have a list of all the stipends. And one thing that I will include, and I didn't when I talked about the first article, is in the front of every section, I call them articles, you folks call them cost centers, it's the same thing, will be a list of all the staffing and all their related costs for that article. So in Article 1, you'll have divided into each section all the costs, for example, for each staff person associated with the East Auburn Community School or the Edward Little High School. So you'll have that broken out by person. It will also be in the ADS presentation materials, but I think having that available to you will help answer some of your questions. It's all public information, and displayed like that, I think you'll find it easier to read. Also on the 10th, we'll be doing Article 5, which is student and staff support, technology, libraries, PD, system administration, that's my office and the school committee. 7, which is school administration, again followed by school committee discussion. Then on the 17th, again, we have a 1-hour presentation that night. We think we can get through transportation, O&M, which is operations and maintenance, and again, school committee discussion. On the 24th, we'd like to go through debt with you, and Article 11 is sort of a catch-all article. It's all other things, crossing guards. We'll touch lightly on adult education. We'll talk about revenue, and then we'll have more school committee discussion. And then on the 31st, so pretty much every Wednesday, beginning on the 24th through the 31st of March, again, we have another 2 hours. And this is really an opportunity for you to decide what you want to send to this public hearing, which is on the 7th. And so on the 7th, there will be a public hearing starting at 6 o'clock. On the 12th is the budget presentation to City Council. And then on May 5th would be your actual vote on the 2022 budget, 21-22 budget. So that being said, that's the timeline. I'm going to switch to Adam, and we're going to talk about the 279.
Okay, so I do have the pages of the 279 in the PowerPoint slides, but it'll be really hard for you to see. So I've also printed it off for you. It's the long pages. There's 6 pages, so I'll walk you through that as we go. So as Dr. Brown said, the 279 is the document whereby the state calculates what they consider to be the essential services, the costs of the essential services for our students, for our district, and how much state subsidy we'll receive. So this slide is an overview of how that works. How does the state determine what funds are needed for school districts? So it's an essential programs and services formula. You've probably heard EPS. That's the formula that drives all of this. It's an adequacy funding model designed to provide equity across all districts. It utilizes data provided by each school district. It accounts for different school district characteristics such as population, enrollment size. It distributes the share between how much is the school district responsible for and how much is the state responsible for. Establishes the payment schedule. We receive it once a month. And required by statute to be distributed to us by February 1st. Now, in years past, it's come a lot later than that. They've been pretty good the last few years, and it's been on time, so we're hoping for that again. And the report, again, is the 279. So, just to clarify, this is what EPS is not. It is not a prescription for how the funds should be spent by the district. It's not a decisive amount to be spent on education in the district. How funds are budgeted and spent on public education is a local decision, and how much to budget and spend on public education is a local decision. And these graphics, by the way, are from the DOE website. They have lots of good info on this stuff. What EPS is. The EPS formula provides the state with a mechanism for establishing minimum sufficient funding level for achieving the state learning results, and a way to distribute the funding responsibility between the local communities and the state. And so this is the graphic they use to display what they're going for is equity. You can see the different size boxes under the kids that are different heights, rather than equality, which would keep the height differential between the kids. So that's to display that equity is the goal of the formula. So the EPS in the 279 breaks down into 6 sections. So I'll walk you through those, and we'll look at Auburn's actual 279, related sort of some of the key ones that I'll walk through with you. You'll see at the top, this is our attending pupil data for the last 2 years. And they take an average of that on line 3, which is the first yellow highlighted box. So we had 3,479.5 students in that calculation. Part B goes through 8 of the different positions that they look at to determine what, based on the staffing ratios that they use, based on the research that they've done, of how many staff we need in our district. So you can see line 1, I highlighted the teachers because obviously that's the largest employee group. And you can see they have different ratios depending on grade level. There's a pre-K ratio of 15:1, then a grades 1 through 5 ratio of 17:1, 6 through 8 is also 17:1, and then when you get to 9 to 12, so the ratio the state uses in this section doesn't account for that. That comes later, but those numbers do get rolled into this of how many of those staff do we have. And we also had 11 staff who were in Title I for such things as literacy coaches, interventionists, and those types of positions. So those are all counted in the 246. I should also mention something that the formula would have no way to know is that we have things like the Franklin Alternative Program, which is a smaller program in its own building. So it doesn't know about things like that, but that's all supposed to shake out. That's why they use a ratio. So based on these calculations, you see in the far right-hand column, they come up with an elementary salary and a secondary salary cost for our district. Going to section C, they use percentages to calculate how much the benefits should cost for those positions. And then section D has some other key costs. I've highlighted the 2 biggest ones. Line 2 is your supplies and equipment. Line 7 is your operations and maintenance, and for those things, they give you a per pupil allocation. So when you get to the bottom of the page, section E, it says other adjustments. And what it does is they break the state out into different labor markets, and then based on which labor market you're in, they'll either take a little bit away or put a little bit more on top. So they look at which market we're in, and they do an adjustment or they reduce this by 2%. They use a 0.98 factor on us. So you can see the negative numbers coming off their calculation on line E. And that takes us to the total costs for instruction for the district as calculated in their formula. And at the bottom, you'll see the $16.9 million for elementary, $7.1 million for secondary. They divide it by the pupils. And the very bottom line there. So these are the pupils that we're eligible to receive subsidy for. And you'll notice the number on page 2 is greater than the number on page 1. That accounts for things like out-of-district placement students who, even though they're not enrolled in